In celebration of Black History Month, Katherine Moore, the daughter of Katherine Johnson, known as the 1950s math genius who helped launch astronauts into space while working for NASA, spoke at the South Fork Recreation Center as part of a STEM program.
Life did the talking.
If you recall, her character was portrayed in the 2017 film Hidden Figures. In the following segment, I got a chance to sit down one-on-one with Moore to talk about her mother and the legacy she left behind. Let's talk a little bit about, talk about Katherine Johnson. Talk about you growing up with your mom. Talk to me a little bit about that. What was that like?
Well, to start off, she was a mom. She was a mother, a sister, a daughter. She was like anyone else. And what we enjoyed was the fact that when she became recognized back in 97, that was her first, 98 was her first official honorary doctorate. And she was even questioning whether she should go. And we said, Mom, people evidently know who you are, yes. But to relate that to who she was that we lived with every day, she was more interested in what kind of students we were we doing our homework, could we make sure that our chores were done, because she kept us busy. She said, idle hands are devil's workshop. And she meant that, you know, she just was so regular, but she was humble, confident in what she knew. She was fearless when she went to work, but she was a gentle lady. She enjoyed her church, her family, and I, as the youngest, just enjoyed being around her, even when she was 101.
Wow. Okay. So she does sound very humble. It does sound, by the way you're saying, you know, she didn't really talk much about it. It was just sort of something, she did her job, but still came home and was your mom. So let's transition into that. When you finally realized, my mom was a mathematician working at NASA, actually helping launch astronauts into space. Talk to me what that was like.
Well, you have to remember, they were the beginning of the space program. And what we remembered as we started having to relive it was that she would come home. She didn't bring work home. It was secret work. It was teamwork. But she had a way of, if something was happening up in the sky, she would make sure we went outside at night, and she would point out different planets to us, or that's the satellite going across the eastern United States. And we just enjoyed that kind of inside information, but that was about it. She just didn't talk about it. She was more interested in were we doing well, and business as usual.
I mean, I would feel, for most people, it's not just an everyday accomplishment. This isn't like an everyday job. So
can I just say, I was here in college in 1962, and I looked down, and on the front page of the paper was Lady Mathematician Gets Man to the Moon. I yelled out in the library, and the librarian says, Katherine, Bennett College here in Greensboro. And she said, that is your mother, because you look just like her, but this is the library. I said, but that's my mother. And I ran home and I called her. She said, aren't you supposed to be in class? Call me later tonight. Go back to class. That's how she handled it. It was her job. She said, but I was just doing my job. And she loved every day of it.
It's almost unheard of. Like, most people would be ready to just talk about it. Like, she was very, like I said, just very humble, and it was her job. And that's fantastic. And still keeping all of you in line as well.
Absolutely.
So then tell me, I really want to know too, so at that time too, it couldn't have been easy being an African woman in the space, world with white men. Tell me, for her, was it hard to navigate her job because of that? Or did she keep on pushing through? I mean, I know it was her and a couple others.
quite a few others. There was a whole group of Black female mathematicians, but what you didn't do, you stayed in your lane basically, but she did not ever feel inferior. She knew that what she knew they needed. And what she would do was question, why can't I go in the room? That part of the movie, because you see, that was basically NASA's movie. And that's why she wrote her book, My Remarkable Journey. She said, I want them to know me. My life didn't start there. She was a teacher first, but what she had, I think, was an inner strength that allowed her, because of her confidence in her abilities, to say, well, is there a law that says I can't go in there? She was a quiet thunder, we called her, because she would question. She wasn't afraid to ask them. She made sure that she had answers if there was, something, because as the movie showed, she would go in, do the work hard at it, and by the time it got reported, it was already another movement. So she said, that doesn't work for me. I need to be in there and hear what's being said. So when the department head decided she's not going to stop, let her go. And it was just that quiet acceptance that we need her, so let's just play along. I don't know if it was that dramatic. It was just a subtle needing her information, understanding. We better let her come in here because she's got the answers we need. And it turned out that John Glenn heard about her, and he really did depend upon the accuracy, because the computers didn't come until the end of basically that. I think she started in 53. And what happened was the trajectory of it was they were writing the books almost as they went. And when it got to his flight in 62, they wanted to use that big computer. And he wasn't quite sure that a machine could do what these women had done so far. And that's kind of how the story went. He never met her. He just knew there was a lady down at NASA that did that math, and that he wanted her numbers because they'd gotten him that far. We're just very proud of what people seem to want to know about her now. And so it's our job to maintain that legacy and help tell who she was, because she's hidden no more. And I hope other people will understand their stories are important. And the times were different, but yet again, what are we going through now? You still have to establish your reputation built on your abilities and your preparation. And that was kind of what she believed in.
Sure. It sounds like, segregation, the tough times, that didn't stop her. And it sounds like because of her abilities and smarts, that's what kept everyone going. So then talk to me then, this coming Saturday, what message do you want to get across? I know that, there's also this push too of, with STEM, we see that more and more. We want, all, just no matter of demographics or gender, we want everyone in these fields. So talk to me, what are some of your key points this coming Saturday at South Fork?
All right. Well, Mr. Quick, who asked me to speak to their recreation department, used the theme inform, inspire, engage. And I had to smile because those words kind of sum up who my mother is. She was informative. She loved to inspire young people because she felt math was just the most important subject, the most exciting. And she didn't even think about whether she could make a living at it. A professor back in the 30s told her she'd make a good research mathematician. Now, you can imagine she couldn't find work when she got out of school doing anything except teaching with a college degree. And so she taught. She was flexible, but she was a good teacher. Students loved her. They enjoyed her classes because she made math fun. STEM is fun. And she always felt that if they could get the right teachers, learn the way she taught us. I mean, we did everything with numbers. We played dominoes, Chinese checkers, hopscotch, anything that had to do with numbers. At 101, she would play a game called Rummikub, because that's a game of numbers, either in sequence or color-coded, but still numbers, adding, subtracting. She said, math, you're either right or you're wrong. So what she did, she tutored, she never charged, and she wanted students to understand what they did. So her classroom today would not have a lot of calculators used on the phone. You would have to learn how to do the applications before you went to the shortcut. Because as a teacher, I always felt shortcuts get you shortchanged. Because if electricity went out, you couldn't use certain tools you needed to know. And she just enjoyed learning. That was her thing. Learn something new every day. So when I talk on Saturday, I'm going to try to inspire the young people to be interested in learning, and especially in the fields that up to now have been mostly for men. She said, you know, young ladies go into a class and sometimes they're not encouraged, but at the same time, they have to be strong enough to withstand. When she went to her first graduate class, this is her story to us, she said, her mother even left home and went to school with her at West Virginia University for that grad class that was supposed to be the precursor to Blacks being allowed into their advanced courses. And so she was the only one. And when she got to the class, the gentleman asked her, well, what do you want to take these courses for? And she, without flinching, said, well, the same reason you took them. I'm interested. And said, he didn't say another word. And she took the courses. But in our, back in her day, they didn't have the luxury of going to grad school unless they were wealthy families. She had to work because by then she had 3 children and a husband, and he was a teacher. So she opted to take care of the family and never went back to grad school because it turned out she didn't need to.
I'm sure. And,
She would have been great. She would have been great.
I have to ask though, so what would she say to someone who says, well, I don't like math, or I can't do math, or it's just not my passion. I can't do math. I want to do something outside of math. What would she say to that?
She didn't force feed you, but she wanted to know, well, why not? Because she started out saying, well, if they don't like math, it's because they had the wrong teacher, or their parents didn't like math, so they put that fear in them. But if I taught them, they'd like math, because she really felt that there's nothing you could do without having a knowledge and understanding of math. At the same time, she had a vision. I mean, I don't know where it came from. Sometimes I make a talk and I will say her steps were ordered, because she seemed to be at the right place at the right time, have the right answers, not be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'll come back to you and I'll have it. She wasn't afraid of hard work. She wasn't afraid of being the only woman in the room. That came from her parents. Her father, who had a 6th grade education. Her mother, believe it or not, was a teacher. She had gone to school back in the 20s, I guess. My grandparents were the quietest, most just warm, friendly, help anybody, church going, nothing unusual for Blacks at that time who were able to work. He built his own home, but he started out on a farm. My mother said in her introduction, in My Remarkable Journey, she said, my family never owned a car. If they wanted to go somewhere, they rode my grandfather's beautiful horses. So with that kind of start, how do you envision going up into space? And I think she was a visionary. Like my sister and I like to use that word because she seemed to have been able to see beyond what normal people could see at that time. And my grandparents didn't stop her when she would wander off and question and try to help everybody at a young age. They just knew that's who she was.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Miss Moore. Is there anything else you'd like to say, or anything about our event this Saturday, or anything, even if it's about your mom, something that you feel like any, young person who might be trying to figure out their future, what, she might say to them to continue with their dreams?
She would say, the sky's the limit. Try. Don't be afraid to try. And if you have questions, learn it, because you have answers. They're there. And she always said a firm foundation so that when a door opens that you're interested in, you're prepared to go through. And she always believed in working towards goals.
Now, in 2015, former President Barack Obama awarded Katherine Johnson a Presidential Medal of Freedom. But for Katherine Moore, her daughter, Johnson wasn't just a scientist, she was just mom. To watch more of our Black History Month programs, visit the City of Winston-Salem's YouTube page. I'm Sarah Mastouri.